Hey gang, welcome to another quarantine life hack. We are in chapter 2 here, Ben and Bucky from Watermark OC. And the big idea that we want to talk about today around your tables, maybe this is an evening session for you as a couple or as roommates, is extra grace required. Bucky has decades of marriage and family therapy under his belt, and he's learned some great tools that will help assist you in your high stress moments as we find ourselves in close quarters together. And this idea, extra grace required, actually kind of starts as a bad joke that Christians use to describe each other when they're difficult or awkward to put up with. They would call that person, hey, this person's very EGR. They are extra grace required. Kind of sad, kind of embarrassing to admit, but it's true. We all have those people in our lives. And then, surprise, here we are in quarantine, and we become those people ourselves, our spouses, our roommates, our significant others. So we have 4 amazing tools. They're right here on the whiteboard. I don't know if that's going to come across as reverse and backwards for you, but anyways, we're going to talk about it. So you're going to learn about it. Bucky, number 1. Take us through number 1. It all starts with you. It all starts with me. Tell us what we need to know.
Yeah. This is the first idea that says that, I'm the extra grace required person. I need to give myself some grace.
Right.
We live in a time of unprecedented change. Stress is coming into our lives, and now in our households because we've come home, we're working at home. Students are doing education at home.
Right.
The house that mom was previously mom's space is now filled with all kinds of stuff going on. And so we have to recognize that there's extra grace required, and it begins with us. And I think for me, it's like recognizing that I'm not going to handle this perfectly. I've never been through a time in my life where these things have happened to me. So I need to understand I'm not going to actually do this very well at times. I'm gonna mess up, even as a professional pastor or counselor. I'm gonna make mistakes, and I have to give myself grace. Recognize my own personality,
right.
Strengths and weaknesses, and how will my personality handle stress, and how can I give myself grace in the middle of that stress? And for me, that means creating some quiet space for myself. Mm-hmm. We've created a place in our garage. It's kind of a workout situation place during this Corona crazy season where we can go in there and do a workout and give ourselves some space and some grace. And maybe there's a place in your house where you can go and say, hey, where's my quiet spot? Where's my safe place?
Yeah, exactly.
Where I can be alone with my thoughts. I can process and become aware of what's going on inside of me and not just act out at somebody, and really take ownership of that and give myself some grace, the grace that God already gives me. And the Bible is full of God's grace for his children, his people. He loves us, he forgives us. He's with us constantly, always wanting to give us compassion and mercy and help. And so we need to give ourselves that same grace by spending time alone, drinking that in. Yep. Sometimes it's a breath prayer, breathing deeply, inhaling grace, exhaling the stress,
yes,
and calming ourselves down before we face the madness of relationships in our home.
That's awesome. So much of this Christian principle, which it really is, of loving ourselves well, accepting ourselves first, is the foundation for our relational health. And we can't skip that step. Jesus in the golden rule, do unto others as you would have done unto you. We always jump to the others part, but we forget, if we're not treating ourselves well, if we're not giving ourselves grace first, we can't love and serve others well either. So that's number 1 right here. It all begins with you. So don't forget that. You got to start with yourself. Give yourself grace. Number 2 is awareness, Bucky. We got to finally get to a place where we acknowledge what's going on. We tell the truth about our scenario. Talk to us a little bit about point number 2, awareness.
Awareness is becoming aware of those parts now in this new rhythm that are maybe triggering stressful responses, maybe an angry attitude, maybe a verbal barb, a look, or something that causes you to act out in an unloving way to somebody in your household, whether it's your child, whether it's your partner, your spouse, your roommate, whatever that is, and become aware and own that part for yourself and say, gosh, I'm understanding that I'm under a lot of stress, and when this situation happens, I tend to act out. And for me, it's kind of like, wow, it's this social media thing. And when I allow those emails to come in and all of a sudden they trigger response, I get so filled with fear sometimes, I take that right to my spouse. Mm-hmm. And so I have to become aware that and really own the fact that, this is not maybe a good thing for me to look at first thing in the morning.
Yeah, right.
And so I have to own that. That's not my spouse's fault. That's my fault that I'm allowing the world to invade my headspace And then the safest person for me to react against is my wife, the one who's trying to love me in the morning. And so there's a good thing for me to say, hey, you know what? I'm gonna turn this thing off in the morning. I'm gonna talk to my spouse and love her first. Spend time praying and encouraging her before I go to find out what's the crazy in the world. So there's an awareness thing for me.
Yeah.
What about you, Ben?
Yeah, that's beautiful. I think you're talking about environment awareness too, and input awareness. That has to go somewhere. And we're going to be on our phones, you guys. I mean, you're on your screen right now, thankfully, partnering with these resources from YouTube. But you have to have moderation. You still have to have a balance now more than ever of all of the data and all of the input that you're consuming, because it'll be unleashed elsewhere. Those nervous energies, those emotions, those feelings, they're deep down under there. And if we don't pause and stop, whether you have a home gym or not, you can just go for a walk. It's still legal to go for a walk by yourself.
Right.
Anyone can do that for 5-10 minutes. Hit a reset, find out what feelings are coming to the surface. And I have to do that absolutely, because I have such a snap judgment with my kids. I respond, I react, I become reactionary. And then the entire environment and atmosphere of our home is filled with this tension of who's going to snap and is dad going to snap. I have to have some time to have a reset, count down, and just calm myself down. Being aware, you guys, relationally, not just internally, but relationally, it's so important so that we don't jump to judgment and see only the other person, our roommate or our spouse or our kids, only see their glaring weakness. Right? Again, the words of Jesus. Before you judge, look at the speck in your eye. You have a plank, rather. You have a plank, a huge wood plank, a 2x4 in your eye, and that is someone else's shortcoming, but really, you need to look at your own stuff first. You need to pay attention to your own self before you look at the grain of sawdust in someone else's life. So it's a great picture of self-awareness. We got to go there. So that's number 2 right there. Be aware, own, acknowledge what's going on. Number 3, Bucky, is ask. We have to eventually build up the strength. We have to go to the person. It's so hard. We've been stewing. We're in our head. Now we finally have to open our mouths. We've given ourselves grace. We've been made self-aware, or we've been made aware, and now we need to do the tough work of opening our mouths. Tell us about why that's so important.
Yeah, and this is so gracious to the person that we're with in our house, whether it's our children, our co-worker, friend, spouse. When we open our mouths, rather than coming at them, blaming them, pointing the finger at them, we've realized that this is our issue. We're acting out of fear. We're acting out of anger. And then we can go and begin to repair that relationship with this beautiful word called forgiveness. This is a grace word that is uniquely Christian in the sense that God forgives us, and now we can seek forgiveness and give it to one another. And so we go to that person that we've hurt with our words or attitudes, or by ignoring them, whatever it is, and just ask forgiveness on my part. Hey, honey, I'm sorry. I was wrong when I acted out, and I sort of yelled at you this morning. Would you forgive me?
Right.
I don't want to act that way. I want to love you and affirm you, and so please forgive me. And so we go through that process of owning that and asking and inviting for forgiveness.
Yeah, you guys are going to be in close quarters for some time. With the recent federal government announcement of all the way through April, 30 days, so you set a 30-day timer. You're going to have opportunity after opportunity after opportunity to master the skill, the muscle of forgiveness. And again, what do the words of Scripture suggest for us? That we forgive, was it 7 times?
How many times do we forgive, Ben?
Is it 70 times 70? Or is it 7 times 7?
70 times 7.
7 times 7. So this is a huge figure, guys. I think Jesus knew. I think Jesus was preparing us for quarantine. Yes, even quarantine was not too big and too insurmountable for us to become healthy in our relationships in the season. In fact, as we talk about it with our staff and our leaders at the church, I'm believing that God is going to use this as a training ground for when we get out of this season. So God is giving every single opportunity in your home, conflict and stress and the environments, an opportunity to practice this, master it now. So when we go back to a little bit normal rhythm, we actually built up some health.
Yeah.
We haven't just totally ripped apart our relationships. So that's number 3.
This is a great opportunity. We can get better at relationships. We can get better at living in our homes in real authentic grace and truth relationships that allow us to thrive and flourish. So there's a great opportunity here. We just got to lean into that.
That's right.
Yeah.
So number 3, ask. That's a good one. Number 4 right here is repair. If you can read that chicken scratch, is repair. Repair and reconcile. Again, we have this awesome mandate from Jesus. He gives the most challenging words for the person, the faithful Jewish person living in the first century. They're on their way to church, they're on their way to worship, and they remember they have a grievance with someone else, maybe in their home, maybe in their community, and Jesus says, drop what you're doing and go and be reconciled. Don't let the sun go down on your anger. Gosh, guys, you can go 30 days, Bucky, you can go 30 days with just letting that unforgiveness fester. It's going to lead to a really toxic place. So why is it so important to move to the final point, repair and reconcile?
Because that kind of gets us back into the intimate relationships and the connection. That's why we got married. That's why we're living together with a roommate. That's why we're family, is because we want to do life together. And this allows us to let go of that bitterness, not allow it to fester, and focus on the positive thing in building a beautiful life, home life, and future together. And so it's really this idea of repairing is repentance. It's turning and walking a different way. It's choosing, instead of using my words to tear somebody down, to build them up. And so great way to repair is to affirm one another. And for me to go at my spouse and say, this is what I appreciate about you.
That's
you
good.
are a safe place for me. You are a loving person. And I want to use my words to build you up versus to tear you down. This is what I appreciate with you. Affirmation is a great way to repair and move forward together.
That's a great tool. I learned that from you in pre and post-marital sessions, to never end a session, which can sometimes be very heated, sometimes very unresolved, to watch in the room as a couple digs down deep and affirms something that, by the way, for affirmations, oftentimes we'll affirm something the person does for us. We're really just blessing ourselves in that. When you can find something distinctly, uniquely about their personality, their wiring, their gifting, and bless that and just say, thank God for you and who you are and what's inside you, to see the room melt, to see a couple melt, to see a glimmer of hope in a conflict situation is a beautiful thing.
Yeah, another way to do that, which I did with my wife this morning after we had a little conflict and I was repairing it, is kind of a prayer hug. It's a little affection and intimacy with God. So it's just kind of giving your spouse a big bear hug and just kind of praying together right there in that moment. That's an amazing way to repair, reconnect with God, and move forward together to the new day. So there's a lot of great ways, or maybe even asking them, hey, what could I do for you today? Is there something that I could do to serve you today? Versus looking at yourself, now start to look at them and see how you might lift them up.
Yeah, that's awesome. So we want to end with a question, guys. One, we got 4 points, which is, again, you, give yourself grace, start with you. Number 2, aware, be aware, become aware of what's the reality in the room, in the relationship. Number 3, ask for forgiveness. You have to finally let the first things that come out of your mouth be repentance and contrite spirit, a soft heart. Finally, number 4, repair, work towards forgiveness and reconciliation. So that was 4 points, but one question we have for you is, where is the area that I need grace today? That you need grace today? What's the special grace? Remember we said that's extra grace. So what's the extra grace required for you today? Go through a list of areas, triggers, vulnerable points in your living environment, your rooms, your spaces, your shared spaces. You know what those triggers are. We know that it's going to be the clothes or the towels left on the floor. We know it's going to be whose turn is it for the dishes, or who's taking the trash out, or who's sweeping, who's doing what, who said what. I love what you said earlier about the glare, the glance, the look.
Right.
So much of this stuff, you guys, is built on unspoken agreements and expectations. Move to known, not unknown expectations by creating a list of what are those triggers, what are the vulnerable points where you know you or your other is going to need extra grace.
Yeah, then you can have a conversation about this and put together a game plan. What things maybe do you need to rearrange? What areas do you need to protect? What things might you do differently so you don't fall into these vulnerable places and have more triggers? You can actually get ahead of it and then build a plan where you're working together to stay in the positive more of the time.
That's right. Guys, thank you so much for joining us for this second chapter in the Quarantine Life Hacks videos. We just want to thank you in advance for subscribing. You want to make sure you get these videos as soon as they're published, and then you can make a plan. Watch them as a couple around the dinner table. Watch them in the morning. Watch them at lunch. Design a calendar appointment for watching these videos because they're going to help you in your time of need. But you got to subscribe. So subscribe to this channel. That's going to help us a great deal in getting the word out of this new channel, as well as comment below. As you watch the video, comment below in the section. Tell us what helped. Tell us what you want more of. Tell us what questions you have. We want to partner with you during this challenging time.
Yeah, give yourself some grace today. Have a wonderful day. Spend time alone, spend time with God, and love the people in your household. God bless you.
Thanks, guys.